Hello and welcome to another Final Cut Pro 10 tutorial review, this time taking a look at CoreMelt's Lock and Load plugin for Final Cut Pro 10. Now this is a $99 plugin that actually gives you some advanced stabilizing plugins to use as part of your production suite. Now first off, I just want to say that there are some key benefits and differences from using this over the built-in stabilizer, and what I want to do is show you how the plugin works and what those benefits are, because I really do think that it is significantly more powerful. And one of the first things that you're going to notice is the speed in which it analyzes the clips over Final Cut's plugin. So before we take a look at the plugin, let's just choose this clip here and turn on stabilization. Hit Command 9 to go into the transcoding and analysis. And you can see it's spending its time, it's working through the dominant motion. But I've got time to go and make a coffee perhaps. Obviously I've specifically chosen a clip that isn't too long. But it's starting to slow down. I'm bored now, so I'm just going to turn that off. And you can see that's cancelled the stabilization. Now, if we go into our effects manager and we go to the C2, which is the CoreMelt 2 Lock and Load plugin, you can see we've got three plugins here. We've got Stabilize Only, Stabilize and Shutter Reduction, and then the Advanced Stabilization tool. Now, we're first of all going to take a look at the Stabilize, Shutter and Reduction. The Stabilize Only, you'll probably want to use in rare cases, because the added shutter reduction is just an added bonus that you can actually limit anyway, so I'd recommend just going for the rolling shutter reduction and stabilization. So when you load it onto a clip, you can see it comes up with a nice little menu on the actual player, on the canvas. And what you want to do is just go ahead and press the track motion, and then it's going to give you a live update in the actual playback menu. You can see it's already on 38%, which is pretty impressive. And bear in mind we were still waiting for Final Cut after about 30 seconds. This has done it in less than 10. And need I say more in terms of speed? You can see that is an obvious massive speed increase, and bear in mind I'm only running on a 2011 MacBook Pro, so just imagine if you have a more powerful machine, you won't be waiting whatsoever. Now, the tools are then going to show up obviously in the video tab in the inspector, so just go ahead and click on the inspector button here, and you can see we've got quite a few options if we compare to the stabilization tools here, which are just a few scale sliders, and then the rolling shutter is just made up of, well, a strength capacitor. Whereas here, we obviously have a lot more control. Let's just take a look at some of these controls now. Now, one of the first things that you'll see, and this is also an added bonus, is the custom coefficient. Now this actually allows you to specify which camera you've actually used to capture the images, and CoreMelt have actually done their research and calculated how different cameras work so they can best counter any issues with stabilization or shutter rolling shutter to be fixed depending on what camera you're using. And you can see they've got quite a good selection, including iPhones and iPads if you're shooting on them, but also some of the key production cameras like the 5D Mark II. Now this was actually shot on a Nikon D800, this music video, but if we choose the 5D Mark III because it's a comparable digital SLR, which isn't always safe, but if you think there is a similar camera to what you're using, then perhaps go with that. There's also a D90 we could have chosen. But obviously if that's giving you freakish results, then make sure obviously you just turn that back to the custom coefficient. And obviously this is going to make some changes for you. Let's just give the clip a playback. Basically it's a shot of a singer singing into the microphone, the camera moves around, and then if we just turn this effect off temporarily, so we can just play back the original clip, Then the camera also moves around a lot whilst it's on the last guy. You can see there's a lot of movement in the rotation and the panning. Let's turn back on stabilization, and you can see obviously we've cropped in a lot. Now this is part of the smart scaling, which basically zooms in and out throughout the video so that it can best adjust for the stabilization. You can choose fixed scaling, which means it's basically going to take the most it's going to zoom in throughout the whole clip and just fixes it on that point. But we want to stick to smart scaling because it's quite clever, or smart. What I would recommend doing though, depending on how much stabilization you want, because I still want a handheld feel in this music video, I just want the clips to feel a bit more glide cammy. And what we can do is we can go ahead and pump down the rotation, and in fact all of these, including the overall strength a bit as well. So now you can see we've got much more of the image back in. It might not play back too well. And you can see, especially towards the end of that clip, when we have this last guy, a lot of the movement has been killed. What I might do is pump the strength back up since we knocked down this stuff. Let's bring the strength, bring the rotation smoothness out, because rotation was one of our biggest enemies. And there you go, you can start to see that we're creating much more stable shots that we can't do without sophisticated equipment in a very short space of time, far faster than the Final Cut built-in plugin, and also we have a lot more control. So you can see we've also got some scale options if you want to adjust how much it's zooming in and out of the clip as it goes along, but we're not going to cover that per se. What we want to do though is just take a quick overview of the advanced camera track, in which we can specify a region of interest. If any of you are familiar with advanced tracking tools, you'll know that what you can achieve is you can block out or specify regions to track, and this is exactly what this plugin does here. You can see that when we select the clip and we get our tools here, we can specify certain areas. Now what I want to do is say ignore the singer. Now you might be thinking I'm mad, why would I want to ignore the person of interest? And that's because what I'm actually trying to do is just take some of the edge off the movement in the camera. And if you play through this clip, he's doing a lot of camera shaking. What I don't want is the camera to start reciprocating his head movement. So what I'm going to do is make sure that the tracking area is set to outside the rectangle. You could choose inside the rectangle if you're tracking something like a moving vehicle or something. Or we can even choose full screen if we want. So what I'm going to do is reduce the size of this tracking area. And then I am going to set a keyframe by clicking that button there. And then what I want to do is just cycle through the clip, just making sure that his head is blocked off by this area. It just needs to be rough. There's plenty of area outside the clip that it's going to be able to pick up the motion from. But you want to do this before you pull the track. And then what you want to do is go ahead and press track motion. And then, even faster than the built-in stabilizer, it's going to track the clip whilst ignoring certain areas. Advanced tracking in half the time. Wonderful. And you can see obviously with this advanced track we obviously have more options. We can choose whether we want this to act like the stabilize only tool or the shutter reduction tool, or both, essentially. You can again choose the custom camera. We go 5D Mark III. And then we have the familiar tools from the non-advanced stabilizer. Don't get me wrong, it's the same technology powering each one, which makes them all very powerful. Just this one obviously gives you a few more features in regards to creating the track. So what I'm going to do is kill down the strength and just knock these down a bit. And now you can see that we've got some nice, really smooth camera motion that feels like a glide cam without using a glide cam, obviously, and without making it feel too smooth, we still have some of the handheld motion that we were going for when we were shooting. So it's really a matter of enhancing the original clips, and these custom tools certainly help you do that. If we just play this clip back without the effect, you can see the camera's going everywhere, but it's got a nice handheld feel to it. Let's turn the effect back on. Camera's still got the movement, but a lot smoother. You can see one of the issues we're getting here is the fact that when the camera moves about here in the actual camera's motion, you can see we've got this blur coming across the screen, and that's basically motion blur, but because the stabiliser has taken the motion out of the shot, it just feels like a blurry effect. So that's one of the things you want to be careful of. So don't use stabilization tools on ridiculous clips that are just shaking all over the place. But what you can do, especially in this instance in which I think it pulls it off perfectly, is smoothing out some of the shots. Now, what I also want to do is just share with you one of Dan's little tips and tricks to help you use stabilization tools in Final Cut and enhance your workflow. Obviously, one of the things you're going to lose is the pixel density, because when you do the smart scaling or any kind of scaling involved in stabilization so that the image still fills the screen, you might lose some of the clarity. So if we go over to our titles and we go to RGB House, I've got a tutorial on this plugin. There's a link in the description. And we just trim this to the length of the clip. This is basically an adjustment layer, and what we're going to add to this adjustment layer is some noise. Go back over to our effects panel, click all and type in noise. Final Cut's having one of them days, and drag that over. And what this is going to allow us to do is to put some of the pixel fidelity back into the shot. So if we just zoom in 100%, so we get an idea of exactly what's going on, what you want to do is make it subtle, so set it around 3 or 4. Maybe drop the opacity a little bit. I'm going to bump it up to 4. What it's going to do is separate out each pixel, so rather than having large amounts of the exact same pixel color, it's going to add some like I said, fidelity back in so that it looks like you've actually got pixels there. If we turn the noise off, you can see it looks like one blurry image. It's essentially like putting sharpness back in, but actually it's just putting pixels back in. And that is one of Dan's tips and tricks that you can use for free. So if you're, say, using a 720p clip in a 1080p timeline, you can use this to fill in the gaps. Now, the reason we have to use an adjustment layer rather than putting it on the actual clip is because the actual clip is scaled. So if you add it to the actual clip, then the noise is just going to get spread out with the clip. You've got to apply it to its own adjustment layer, or pre-compose the clip that's been scaled so it is treated as its own original 1080p clip. You can do that with 720p clips, and then you can add noise to the compound clip, if that made sense. So that is Lock and Load. Check out CoreMelt.com. I strongly recommend it if you do a lot of handheld stuff. It's certainly an incredibly efficient and fast tracking tool. I hope I've shown how it is better than the built-in tool, which certainly lacks a lot of customization, and the advanced tracking tool especially is obviously very cool, being able to specify regions of interest, and then you can apply Dan's noise technique to put some quality back into your images as well. So like I said, hopefully this was useful, hopefully this was interesting, and yeah, go and check out the plugin. It's really great, and I definitely recommend it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon in a brand new Final Cut tutorial.